What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Maths Guy. Today we're going to look at the 2022 SATS Maths paper, Paper 3, Reasoning. If you haven't checked out Paper 1 and 2, you can see those on my channel as well, and I'll link them in the description. So let's begin by just looking at the instructions. This is a non-calculator test, and we have 40 minutes to complete it. It says that we can do our workings out around the question or in the question box, but do not write on any of the barcodes. So let's begin with question 1. It says, here is a drawing of a hexagonal prism. And then the question says, how many faces does the prism have? Well, let's think about what we know about a hexagon. A hexagon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. Therefore, it's going to have 6 edges all the way around. We're going to have 1, 2, 3. And then on the back side, the ones we can't see, we're going to have 4, 5, and 6. But then we also have this front face for 7 and the back face for 8. So how many faces does our prism have? We have 8. Question 2 says, here are 6 number cards. And the question says, use all 6 cards to complete the 3 multiplications below. And it's even put it in bold that we're going to use all 6 cards. So let's use this space next to the question to see any of the possible solutions. So how can we get to 24? Well, to get to 24, we could use 3 times 8. So I could have 3 times 8. But I could also have 4 times 6. 4 times 6. So we won't complete that one yet. Let's have a look at 28. How are we going to get to 28? Well, there's actually only one solution to get to 28. We would have to multiply 7 times 4. And then to get to 30, I would do 5 times 6. So because I've used my 4 and my 6 here, I now can't use this question. So I'm going to have to stick with 3 times 8, 7 times 4, and 5 times 6. Does that use all of our numbers? Let's just check. 3, 8, 7, 4, 5, and 6. Yes, it does. The trick of this question would have been this first one, making sure that we actually understand that there were 2 options and making sure that we pick the right one with the numbers that we had left. Question 3 says, Olivia buys a banana, an apple, and a bag of nuts. She pays with 3 50p coins. What is her change? Okay, so let's first work out how much she spent. So her banana was 30p, her apple was 45, and her nuts were 60. So let's add those together. We have 30 plus 45 plus 60. Starting our units, 5 plus 0 is 5. 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 6, 13. So I have 135p that's been spent, or £1.35. But it wants to know how much she has as change. And she paid with 3 50p coins. Well, 3 times 50 is 150. So if we have 150, subtract my 135, 0 subtract 5 I can't do, so I'll have to borrow from next door. 10 subtract 5 is 5, 4 subtract 3 is 1, 1 subtract 1, 0. So her change would be 15p. And again, noticing that it says show your method, so it wants to see our workings out to get the full 2 marks. Okay, question 4 says draw 4 lines to match each fraction to its equivalent decimal. So we obviously have got 4 fractions here, 1, 2, 3, 4, but we have 6 decimals, so obviously only some of them are going to match. So we need to be careful here. Let's look at our first one, 1/2. Well, 1/2 is equivalent to 0.5, so I'll draw that line across. Then we have 3/10. 3/10 is saying that we have a 3 in the tens column, so drawing out my place value charts, ones, tens, decimal, tenths, and 3/10 would have a 3 in the tenths column. Put my decimal on my 0 in place, and I have 0.3. So 3/10 is equivalent to 0.3. 3/4, this is one of the ones that we should just know off by our head. 3/4 is the same as saying 0.75. And 3/100 is now saying that my 3 is in the hundreds column. So let's put my hundredths, put my 3 in place, fill in the placeholders, and I'd have 0.03. There it is, match them across. And this question was worth 2 marks. Question 5. Some children vote for their favourite ice cream flavour. We have the ice cream flavours here, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, mint. Mint would definitely be my favourite. And then we have the number of children that voted. 87 for vanilla, 154 for chocolate. We don't know how many for strawberry. I imagine that's going to be part of the question. And 38 for mint. But we have the total, and the total is 402. How many children voted for strawberry? There we go, that's the question. So if we have the total of 402, what we could do is we could subtract the sum of everything else. So let's do that first. We're going to add up our 87, our 154, and our 38. So I'm going to do that over here. 7 plus 4 is 11, plus my 8 is 19. 8 plus 5 is 13, plus my 3 is 16, plus my 1 is 17. And then 1 plus my new 1 is 2. So between every other flavour, we had 279 children, but the total was 402. So to find the missing value, I'd have to subtract my 279 away from my 402. And that will give me the missing value of strawberry. So let's do that. 2 subtract 9 we can't do. And if we look next door, we actually have nothing next door. This is a very classic SATS question where we can't borrow immediately from next door. So we have to look again and borrow from the next door. So let's put this 4 down to a 3 and put a 1 in my tens column. Now my 2 can look next door, look at the 10 and put it down to a 9, borrowing a whole 10, making it a 12. Now I'm ready to begin. 12 subtract 9 is 3, 9 subtract 7 is 2, and 3 subtract 2 is 1, leaving my total answer for the amount of people that chose strawberry as 123, and I would get both marks. Don't be afraid at this point to use this extra space around the answer box if it's more helpful. I like to spread my work out and really use the space available, but some people prefer to write in these boxes. Either is fine. Okay, question 6 says this chart shows the range of temperatures each day during 1 week from Monday to Friday. We have the temperature across the bottom and we have the days going across our chart. Then question 1 says what is the lowest temperature? Well, looking at our numbers, we have positive values over here and more negative values on the left hand side. So looking at my negative values, I can see we have a -8, but no day reaches -8. I have a -6, and we have Friday and Tuesday that go past -6 onto this spare line here, which would therefore be -7 between the -6 and -8. Again, another very classic thing that they like to do on SATS papers, where they give you a chart with missing values. Some people like to fill those values in, so I might do that now. -5 here, -3, -1, 1, 3, 5, 7. That will just help me avoid making any more small mistakes. So what is the lowest temperature? We have -7. Question 2 says, what is the difference between the highest and the lowest temperature on Wednesday? So we're only focusing on Wednesday, and it wants to know the difference between the highest and the lowest. And I bet we're going to use those missing values again. Yes, we are. Look. So Wednesday, the lowest value was this one here, -5. And the highest value, again, one of our missing values, was at 3. So how do we get from -5 to 3? Let's draw a number line. -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Let's see how many jumps that was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So our differences between the highest and the lowest temperature on Wednesday is 8 degrees, and we would get both marks. Question 7 says on Saturday afternoon, a total of 234,869 people attended 3 rugby matches. 80,978 people attended match 1. 72,319 people attended match 2. How many people attended match 3? So let's look at this with a quick bar model. We have a total of 234,869. On match 1, we had 80,978. Match 2, let's see if I can squeeze this in, we had 72,319. And we're looking for how many people were at match 3. So again, it's that missing value question. So our first step is we're going to find the total of the values we know. So let's add 80,000 978 to 72,319. So my total for match 1 and 2 was 153,297, but we still don't know this missing value. So essentially what we've got is 153,297 plus something equals 234,869. So now we can simply just use inverse, and I can say that 234,869 subtract 153,297 must equal my question mark. So let's do that now. I have 234,869 subtract 153,297. Don't be put off with these big numbers. It's not much harder, it's just a little bit longer. So my total answer for the amount of people that turned up to match 3 is 81,572. And I would get my 2 marks. Now again, notice how much space I've used around this question to answer this question. Don't be afraid to use the paper that is in front of you. Question 8, and we're going to look at a bit of rounding now. And our number that we're going to be rounding is 7,546. First one says, round to the nearest 1,000. So, 7,546. And let's label it. This is our thousands, our hundreds, tens, and ones. So when we're rounding to our nearest thousands, we need to look next door to see how it's going to be influenced. And if we remember, if our number is 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we're going to leave that number alone and not round it up. But if it's 5 or more, we will let it soar. We'll round it up. And as we can see, we have a 5. So that 5 is going to make our 7,000 round up to an 8,000. So to the nearest 1,000 would become 8,000. Now it wants us to round it to the nearest 100. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 100, I will underline it and look next door. This time we have a 4. So the 4 is not big enough to round our 5 up. So we're going to keep it as a 5. So rounding it to the nearest 100 would be 7,500. And then rounding to the nearest 10, we're going to underline our 10 and then look next door. And we can see we have a 6, which is greater than 5. So the 6 is going to influence the 4 and bump it up to a 5. So I'll end up with 7,550. So in the question like this, as long as we understand our method of if we have a 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, we round the number up. But if we have a 4, 3, 2, 1 or 0, we would leave the number as it is. Question 9 is wanting us to look at this equation. It's an equation because we have this equal sign and we have 2 things either side of it. But we have this missing value. So what it's saying is that 1,000 times 416 is equivalent or the same as saying 10 times something. So let's first work out this side of the equation first. 1,000 times 416. Well, we're going to use our place value knowledge and know that if it's 416 times 1,000, we're going to end up with 416,000. If I wanted to draw my place value chart out, I could. Let's have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. And I started with 416, but I'm timesing it by 1,000. So I would need to move it 1, 2, 3 places. So 1, 2, 3 brings the 4 into the 100,000, the 1 into the 10,000, the 6 into the 1,000, and I'd put my placeholders in place, 416,000. But we've not finished because that means it's got to be equal to 10 times something. Well, what must we multiply by 10 to get to 416,000? Well, to do this, we can just get our 416,000 and divide by 10, which gives us 41,600. So my 41,600 when times by 10 will equal 416,000. So my final answer is 41,600. Question 10. Adam buys 4 pens and a ruler and pays £4.75 altogether. So our 4 pens and 1 ruler equals £4.75. Then it says, Jack buys 2 pens but only pays £1.98 altogether. How much does the ruler cost? Okay, so we've got a little bit of working out to do here. So because Adam has 2 variables, because he's bought pens and a ruler, we're not really going to be able to use Adam to help us find out what each of these values is worth. But Jack has only bought pens, and he bought 2 of them for £1.98. So to find out how much 1 pen is, we can just divide our £1.98, or 198 pence, by 2. So let's do that first. How many 2s are in 1? 0. How many 2s are in 19? 9, with 1 left over. How many 2s are in 18? 9. So each pen costs 99 pence. So now we can use that knowledge to help us work out how much the ruler costs. Because Adam bought 4 pens. So let's see how much he spent on pens. If each pen is 99 pence, we're going to do 4 times 99. I can do that in my column method. 99 times 4. 4 9s are 36. And again, 4 9s are 36, but plus my 3, 39. So I have £3.96. So he spent £3.96 on just his pens. So therefore, the difference between his total, which was £4.75, subtract how much he spent on the pens, which was £3.96, is going to give us the ruler price. So let's see how much that was. 5 subtract 6 we can't do. Let's borrow from next door. 15 subtract 6 is 9. 6 subtract 9 I can't do. Borrow from next door again. 16 subtract 9 is 7. 3 subtract 3 is 0. So how much did he spend on the ruler? The answer is 79 pence. Loads of working out, but that's not the only way we could have done it. What we could have said is that we know Jack buys 2 pens and Adam bought 4 pens. So if we get this £1.98 and we times it by 2, we would automatically get our £3.96, and then again we could just subtract that from the total of £4.75 and it would give us the same answer. So 2 different methods, but to get you the same answer. Let's have a look at question 11. Ali chooses a whole number. When she multiplies her number by 4, the answer is less than 100. When she multiplies her number by 5, the answer is greater than 100. Write a number that Ali could have started with. Okay, we've been given loads of information here. So we know that she's chosen a whole number. That's our first clue. Then we know that when she multiplies her number by 4, so let's put a question mark for her number. When she multiplies it by 4, we get an answer that is less than 100. But then, when she multiplies her number by 5, she gets an answer that is greater than 100. So let's use a little bit of trial and error to get us there then. Let's start with just the number 10. Let's do 10 times 4 equals 40. So that's right, that's less than 100. But then 10 times 5 only equals 50, and that's not greater than 100. So it's not going to be 10. We need to pick something larger. Let's try 20. 20 times 4 equals 80. That's right, that's less than 100. 20 times 5 equals 100. Well, 100 is not greater than 100. So that is wrong. But we know we're now close. Let's try 25. 25 times 4 equals 100. Well, 100 is not less than 100, so we know that's wrong straight away. So our number is somewhere between 20 and 25. Let's do 21. 21 times 4 equals 84, but 21 times 5 equals 105. So 21 times 4 is 84, that's correct, that's less than 100. And 21 times 5 is 105, which is greater than 100. So we could have 21 as an answer. But there are multiple possibilities because 21 fits between this gap here, but there are other numbers. We have 21, 22, 23, and 24. And I think all of those numbers are going to work. Let's check. So we know 21 works. Let's check the other extreme. Let's try 24. 24 times 4 equals 96. That's good. That's less than 100. 24 times 5 equals 120. That's good. That's greater than 100. So 24 would work too. Therefore, we know everything between 21 and 24 would work. So we could have any of these four numbers: 21, 22, 23, or 24. Trick to this is to use a bit of trial and error. Start with a number that makes sense to you and then just go from there. Question 12 says, William says the rule for this diagram. Find the difference between the numbers in the circles. Double this to make the number in the square. And then it says use the same rule to write the missing numbers below. So finding the difference between the numbers in the circles, so the difference between 5 and 20 is obviously 15. And then double this to make the number in the square. So we would double that to get the number in the square. That makes sense that that would then be 30. So let's use the same rule to work out these questions below. So what's the difference between 32 and 100? Well, I know it's 68, just on the top of my head, but if you wanted to use column subtraction, you could. And you could do 100 subtract 32. But then it says I need to double my 68, and doubling 68 gives me 136. Again, you could times that by 2 or add two 68s together if you wanted to. But our second one is a little bit harder because now we have to come backwards. So if we know we're doubling when we're coming this way, we're obviously going to halve when we're coming the other way. So what's half of 400? Equals 200. So therefore the difference between these two circles is 200. So I'm going to be adding 200 to my 110, leaving me 310. A little bit confusing, particularly on that second one where we come backwards. But understanding doubling and halving here would really help us. Okay, jumping into question 13 says, write the missing fraction to make this addition correct. So we can see that this is an addition question and we have a missing fraction. So let's look at what we know. We know that the answer is going to be 5/6. But the start of our question is 2/3. So we have different denominators. We have a 3 and a 6. And we know when we are adding fractions, we must have the same denominator. So what we're going to do is we're going to find an equivalent fraction to this fraction, but with a 6 as a denominator. So how can I get from my 3 to a 6? Well, I would have to multiply by 2. Therefore, whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. So 2 times 2 is 4. So now my equivalent fraction to 2/3 would be 4/6. So I can get rid of this now and work with 4/6. So now my question says 4/6 plus something equals 5/6. Well, hopefully we can see that 4/6 add 1/6 would equal 5/6. If this was a bit trickier and I couldn't see that in my head, I could just do the inverse and do 5/6 subtract 4/6 equals 1/6. Same answer. I'm going to make sure I put my answer actually in the answer box just to be sure. Okay, question 14 says Jack hires a hall for a party. This formula is used to work out the total cost. And it says the total cost equals a £15 booking fee plus £12.50 for every hour they use the hall. And then it says what is the total cost of hiring the hall from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m. So let's first work out how many hours we're going to be in the hall. And if we're going from 6 to 11 p.m., that equals 5 hours. So now we can start to write our formula a little bit. So our cost, let's put a C, equals 15 because we know we're going to have to pay this £15 plus 5 times £12.50 because we're going for 5 hours and it's going to cost £12.50 per hour. Let's work out this part of our formula first because following BODMAS we must always do multiplication first and because we want to work out how much the total for the amount of hours is. So let's do 5 times £12.50. So I'm going to put my £12.50 and multiply by 5. Now when we're multiplying by a decimal, we can just ignore this decimal just for now and we'll put it back at the end. 5 times 0 is 0 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 2 is 10, plus my 2 is 12, and 5 times 1 is 5, plus the 1 is 6. Put back my decimal, and my total cost for the hours is £62.50. So let's do the next line of my formula. The cost equals £15 plus the total cost of the hours, which is £62.50. Now I simply just add this up. £62.50 plus £15. Add that up. So my total cost equals £77.50. Make sure I put it into the right box. And I'm good to go. Question 15 says Stefan stands in the center of this square. So Stefan is standing right here. Stefan is facing F. So at the minute he's facing F. He turns anti-clockwise. So let's just remember that anti-clockwise comes back along the clock face like this to face D. So now he's facing D. What angle does Stefan turn through? So he's gone from this point here to this point here. So therefore he's gone from this line to this line, and we can see that those two lines are making a right angle, and therefore right angles are 90 degrees. Hopefully we know that right angles are 90 degrees. Might look a little bit different because maybe we're used to seeing right angles like this or like this, and this one is obviously at an angle, but it's still a right angle. Then it says Stefan is now facing towards D. Now he's facing here, and he turns 3 right angles clockwise. So clockwise would be this way. Write the letter he faces after the turn. So he's gone 1 right angle, 2 right angles, and 3 right angles. So if he's gone 1, 2, 3, he's now facing this line here, which is B. So we'll put B as our answer. And let's move on to question 16. Part of this 10 by 10 grid is shaded. We can see this is a 10 by 10. We have 10 squares across the top and 10 squares down the sides. Tick the fraction that represents the shaded part of this grid. And they've tried to trick us because they've shaded different positions rather than all next to each other. But we have 10 shaded here, another 10, another 10, and another 10. So we have 40 that's shaded. There was 100, so we have 40 over 100. So I can tick my 40 over 100. But look what I've noticed. I've noticed 2 marks, and it says tick the fractions with an S. So there must be another one here. Well, it's not going to be 1/4, because 1/4 would be 25 over 100. It's not going to be 6/10, because 6/10 would be 60 over 100. What about 4/10? Well, 40 over 100 would be equivalent to 4/10, wouldn't it? Because we've divided by 10 on both the numerator and the denominator. So 4/10 would be, and I think this is where people are going to make a mistake because they've now found 2 and they're going to think, great, move on. But actually, let's have a look at 2/5. Because if we have 4/10, if we divide our 4 by another 2, and then we divide our 10 by another 2, we get 2/5. So therefore 2/5 is also an equivalent fraction of 40 over 100. So it would be 2/5 as well. So we actually have 3 fractions here to make the correct answer. This is a tricky one. I think a lot of people are going to forget the 2/5. Question 17. Kim makes a cuboid model using straws. And we have the length, the width, and the height given to us. And then we have some information. She uses straws that are 7.5 centimeters in height. So we know this height is 7.5. She uses straws that are 11 centimeters in length. And she uses straws that are 8.5 centimeters long in the width. What is the total length of all the straws in her model? Okay, so we've got a bit of work to do here. So the first job is identifying which straw is which. Let's start with our lengths. So this is one length, but then also this would be a length. And then I have 2 lengths on the back side as well, 1 and 2. So in total, I have 4 lengths. So I'd have 4 times 11. Now let's have a look at these widths. Well, I have 1 width here. I have 1 width here, that's 2, 3, and 4. So again, I have 4 times 8.5 this time. And then let's have a look at the heights. I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 heights. So I would have another 4 times 7.5 this time. And then when I add all of those together, I should get my total. So let's do that right now. And I'm going to try and do this in my head. 4 times 11 is 44. 4 times 8.5, well, I'm going to do 4 times 8. 4 times 8 is 32. And then 4 times 0.5 would be 2. So that would give me a total of 34. And then the last one, 4 times 7.5, well, 2 times 7.5 is 15. So therefore 4 times 7.5 is 30. Remember to try and use any mental maths you know to try and help you, because we are under time pressure. Now I can just simply add these up. So my total is 108 centimeters. But there is another way. Because we know we have 4 of each of them, what we could do is just get a total by adding the 7.5 to the 11 and the 8.5. So let's do that. Gives me 27. And then if I times my 27 by 4, 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 2 is 10. Gives me the same answer. So my total, 108 centimeters. Question 18, and a classic SATS exam question. We have a percentage discount. So this shows a sale, and this t-shirt is reduced by 30%. The full price of the t-shirt is £15. The price is reduced by 30%. What is the reduced price? Okay, so let's do this in stages then. And what we can always do is try and find 10%, because 10% of something is easy to find because we can just divide it by 10. Therefore, 10% of £15 would be £1.50. And if you can't see that, you can use your place value chart to help you. So if 10% is £1.50, then all we need to do to get to 30% is times our £1.50 by 3. So therefore 30% of 15 is £4.50. Again, if you couldn't do that in your head, use your written calculations. But that's not finished. This is how much the t-shirt was reduced by, but it asked me for what is the reduced price. So what's the new price? So it was £15, and we're subtracting £4.50 away. So let's do that then. 0 subtract 0 is obviously 0. 0 subtract 5 we can't do, so I'm going to have to look next door. 10 subtract 5 is 5. 4 subtract 4 is 0. And 1 subtract nothing is 1. So my total price after the reduction of 30% is £10.50. Okay, question 19. We're getting very close to the end. Bear with me. Here we go. Question 19 says, Jack says, when you square a prime number, the answer has only 2 factors. Explain why Jack is not correct. So they've been kind enough to tell us that Jack is not correct here, but we need to explain why. Well, first of all, what is a prime number? Well, a prime number is a number that only has 2 factors. For example, 7 only has a factor tree of 1 and 7. There's nothing else that can be multiplied together, no other integers, whole numbers that can be multiplied together to get the answer 7. But Jack has said that when we square this prime number, we will still only have 2 factors. So let's square 7, and 7 squared is 49. Well, now 49 has the factors 1 and 49, but it also now has 7 and 7, because it was 7 squared that actually made the number 49. So therefore, if we square a number, we're automatically giving it another set of factors, or another factor. But we need to explain this a little bit. So we can say that a prime number equals 2 factors, and if we square a prime number, we get 3 factors. Hopefully you can see that, because just by definition, if we square a number, we're automatically giving it another factor, because we're multiplying it by the 7s, and that would work with any prime number. Question 20. This table shows how many people finished the New York Marathon in each of the first 4 decades it was held. A decade being 10 years, but I don't think we need to know that. So in the first decade, we can see 24,863 people finished. Then it went up to 170,932, and then 282,420, And then finally, in the fourth decade, 350,824 people completed it. Then it says, what is the mean number of people who finished the marathon per decade? Round your answer to the nearest 100. Wow, we've got loads to do here. And you can see for the first time, we have 3 marks available. Whoa, that is a big indicator that we've got loads of work to do. So first of all, what does mean equal? If we don't know that, we're going to struggle. So the mean equals the average. So it's asking us to find the average of these 4 quantities. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to get the total, and then we're going to divide it by how many there are, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's going to give us our mean. So let's do that first. I've got 24,863 plus 170,932. Being very careful of putting my numbers in the correct columns. Then 282,420. And then 350,824. Definitely worth at this point just checking that we've written the right numbers. This could be a very simple mistake we make that could throw everything else off. Now we've done loads of column addition today, so I'm just going to put the answer in, 3, 2, 1, and that gives me a total of 829,039. Okay, so that's my total, but now I need to divide it by 4 to get my average. So let's do that. 829,039 divided by 4. How many 4s are there in 8? It's 2. How many 4s in 2? 0, but that means I must roll my 2 across. How many 4s are there in 29? There are 7 with 1 rolled over. How many 4s are there in 10? There are 2 with 2 left over. How many 4s are there in 23? There are 5 with 3 left over. And then how many 4s are there in 39? Well, there are 9 with 1 left over. So we have a remainder, but that shouldn't matter because we're rounding our number to the nearest 100. So let's put our number over here. So that's the average, but we're rounding it to the nearest 100. So where's my 100 column? Well, I have 1s, 10s, 100s. So this is my 100 column. So I look next door and see the 5 influences this 2 up to a 3. So my answer would be 207,300. And then I'll put my answer in the correct box. And that'll get me all 3 marks. Tough question there, particularly if you don't know what mean means, because that is obviously really important. Good tip at this point is to look at how many marks you're offered for the question. If you are offered 3 points, that means the question is going to be big. So be prepared to do lots of working out. And finally, we're here. Question 21, the last question. This says, these 2 rectangles are identical. So let's call this A and let's call this B. The lengths of each rectangle is 3 times its width. So the length equals 3 width. But it's not drawn to scale, so we can't do anything like get our ruler out or anything like that. What is the coordinate of point P? Now this is only offering us 1 mark, so it mustn't be as tricky as it sounds. Let's have a look at what we do know. Well, we've been given no measurements actually on the graph itself, but what we have been given are 2 coordinates here. We know that this point is 0 to 1, and we know that this point here is -2, 8. So if this is -2 along the x-axis, that therefore means that this width here is actually 2. And this is the clue. Now we know that the width is 2, we know that the length is 3 times the width. So the length must equal 6. So the width is 2 and the length is 6. Now we can start to fill in some of the details. So therefore this measurement here is 6, this measurement here is 6, and this measurement here is 6. And this would be 2. So I think we can do our x-axis by looking at our point P. Coming along our length, we know we're coming 6. So therefore this P must be at 6 on the x-axis. But where is it on the y-axis? Well, we've got 2 here, but then we've also got another 1 here that's shown by that little mark there. So therefore 2 plus the 1 is 3. So my coordinate of P is 6 and 3. And this was all doable by working out that this measurement here is 2 and finding our clue. So whenever you see anything like this, there will always be a clue. You've just got to try and find it. And there you go. Can you believe it? We have now finished our test. And this was the 3rd test of the 2022 SATS. So we've now completed all of the exams. Hopefully this has given you a really good understanding of what to expect in the next exams coming up. I really hope this has been helpful for you. If it has, think about subscribing to the channel because we're going to be making daily videos to help you get through your SATS exams. If you want to take it super seriously, you can join my free course, where the link is in the description below, that goes through everything you're going to need to know to pass your Year 6 tests, with video lessons, written explanation, downloadable resources, and much more. So you can find that in the video link description. Like I say, hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you very much for watching, but for now I'm going to see you in another video. Peace out.